Today we're going to do a pre-trip inspection on a Class B school bus with hydraulic brakes. This would be the memory aid that you can use. This is the only memory aid that you can use. It's out of the Commercial Driver's License CDL handbook. So when you do your inspection, this is the only memory aid you can use. You cannot put any notes on it or anything like that. Stop.
Good.
All right, we're going to do a pre-trip inspection today on a Class B school bus with hydraulic brakes. The way this pre-trip inspection is going to be performed is the way you're going to have to do it when you renew your license, or if you're a new applicant, this is the way you're going to have to do your pre-trip inspection for all the items on this school bus. And in the video, we've mentioned that you do not have to crawl underneath the bus, but you do have to know the components, where they're at, what to inspect them for, and even the items you can't see. You'll still have to say whatever item it is, like your brake rotor or brake pads. They're really hard to see, but they're down underneath here in the back of the wheel. I would check them for whatever you need to check them for, along with any other items on the pre-trip. There is no crawling underneath the bus or anything like that. So hopefully this will be helpful for you when you do your pre-trip inspection to renew your license, or if you're a new applicant, to help you get your first CDL school bus driver's license. Okay, this is our school bus we're going to be doing the pre-trip on today. So we're going to start by checking our clearance lights on the top of the bus, make sure they're the proper color, they're not cracked or broken. We're going to check our warning lights to make sure that they're not cracked or broken the proper color. We're going to check our windshield to make sure it's not cracked or broken. We're going to come down to our mirrors to make sure they're both securely mounted, not cracked or broken. We're going to check our stop crossing gate, make sure that it functions and it's securely mounted. We're going to check our headlights, make sure they're not cracked or broken. And we're going to check our signal lights to make sure they're not cracked or broken in proper color. We're going to look underneath the bus to make sure there is no leaks underneath the bus.
Whenever he gets it going, it's good.
All right, next we're going to do the engine compartment on the vehicle, and we're going to do all items on the driver's side, front axle, and we're going to do anything that's different on the other side. So right now we're going to start on the driver's side of the vehicle. We're going to check our hoses to make sure they're not cracked or broken. None of them are leaking. We're going to check our coolant level to make sure that it's full. We're going to check our oil level down here. We're going to pull that out, make sure that the oil level is full. We're going to check our power steering fluid to make sure that that's full. We're also going to check our power steering pump, which is down underneath here, and it's gear driven. And we want to make sure that that's all tight and secure. Next, we're going to go to our gearbox, make sure that it's all tight, secure. None of the hoses are leaking from there. Our steering linkage, we're going to make sure that all the nuts are in place, the cotter pins are in place, and all of our steering components are tight and secure, nothing is loose. Next, we're going to do our springs and our spring mounts. Okay. Ready?
Yep, you're good.
All right, next we're going to check our suspension. We're going to check our spring mounts on the front and on the rear to make sure that they're securely mounted, not cracked or broken. We're going to check our springs to make sure that they're all in place. None are missing, none are cracked or broken. We're going to check our shock absorber to make sure it's tight and secure and not leaking. We're going to check our U-bolts, which are down here, that hold the springs on, make sure they're all tight and secure. Next, we're going to do our brake hose, make sure it's not cracked, frayed, or leaking. Ready?
Yep.
All right, next we're going to check our brake rotor to make sure it's not cracked or broken. We're going to check our brake pads to make sure they have adequate lining on them and they're not wore too dangerously thin. You can look through the wheel hole to check those. There's a dust cover on the back side, you can't see them. Any items you can't see, you still have to point out where they would be and what you'd check them for. Next, we're going to move to the tire. We're going to check the tire for adequate tread depth. We're going to check the sidewall, make sure it has no cuts or bulges. And we'll check the air pressure with a gauge to make sure it's at the manufacturer's specs. We're going to check our rim, make sure it's not cracked or broken. We're going to check our lug nuts to make sure that they're all tight and secure, none are missing, none are loose. We're going to check our hub oil seal to make sure it's not leaking. And if it was an oil hub, we would check the level on the oil. Stop. All right, we're going to check our alternator next to make sure that it's securely mounted. All the wires are in place. Nothing is loose, broken. We're going to check our water pump, which is down underneath here on this model. Make sure it's securely mounted and not leaking. There's a serpentine belt that drives both of these items. We're going to check for tension, make sure we have proper tension. There's no cracks or breaks in the belt. We're also going to check our hoses on this side to make sure none are leaking, none are cracked, none are have any holes in and are all tight and secure.
Very good.
All right, next we're going to do the side of the bus. We're going to start at the door. We're going to go down the whole side of the bus. We're going to check the underneath of the bus, whatever needs to be checked underneath there. We're going to do the rear axle, everything that needs to be inspected on that rear axle. We're going to do the back of the bus, and then we're also going to do whatever's different on the other side. So we're going to start with the door here to make sure that the hinges work properly, the seals are all in place, opens and shuts, no problems with the door. All right, next we're going to do the side of the bus, so we're going to check all of our lights to make sure they aren't cracked, broken, and are the proper color. We're going to check our reflectors to make sure that they're in place and the proper color. Our side signal light, make sure that it's in place, not cracked or broken, the proper color. We're going to do this down the whole side of the bus. We're going to check our reflectors, make sure they're all in place. Our clearance lights to make sure they're not cracked or broken, proper color, yellow in front, red in the rear. Stop. All right, next we're going to check underneath the bus. We're going to check our exhaust, make sure there's no holes in it and it's all securely mounted. There's no black soot. We're going to check our drive shaft to make sure that it's not bent, nothing's wrapped around the drive shaft, it's not hanging down. We're also going to check our frame here to make sure that it's not cracked, broken, and no extra holes and all the bolts are in place. So this is our frame, our exhaust, and our drive shaft. Checking all those items to make sure there's no holes in them, nothing's cracked, broken, hanging down. Stop. Alright, next we're going to check our suspension on the rear of the bus. We're going to check our springs, make sure they're not cracked or broken. We're going to check our spring mounts to make sure that they're all in place, not cracked or broken. We're going to check our U-bolts to make sure that they're tight and secure. We're going to check our shock absorbers to make sure it's tight, secure, and not leaking. All these items you probably can't see very well. You do not have to crawl underneath the bus to check them, but you do have to point in the area where they are and explain to the examiner what you're checking each item for. You're also going to do your brakes, same as you did in the front. You're going to check the brake hose to make sure it's not cracked, frayed, leaking. You're going to check your rotor to make sure it isn't cracked or broken. You're also going to check your brake pads to make sure they have enough lining on, they aren't worn dangerously thin. These items you can't see, you still have to explain them. You do not have to crawl underneath the bus to do this, but you do have to know where they are, and what to inspect them for. You're going to check your splash guards to make sure that they're on here and secure. Next, you're going to go to your tires. You're going to check each tire for adequate tread depth, no cuts or bulges, and the proper inflation you check with a gauge. You're going to check in between your duals to make sure your rims are tight together. There's nothing lodged in between there, no rocks or sticks or anything. So you're going to check your rim to make sure it isn't cracked or broken, no illegal welds. You're going to check all your lug nuts to make sure they're tight and secure. And you're going to check your axle seal to make sure that it's secure and not leaking. Stop. All right, next we're going to check our fuel tank. Make sure the cap is on tight and secure. The door shuts properly and secure. We're going to look underneath the bus to make sure there's no leaks in the fuel tank. And we're going to look at the mounting for the fuel tank to make sure it's all mounted securely. Nothing's cracked or broke on the mounting of the fuel tank. Also, we have our red reflector here, red clearance lights in the back. Stop. All right, next we're going to do the back of the bus. So we're going to inspect all of our lights. Make sure our clearance lights are not cracked or broken, the proper color. Our warning lights are not cracked or broken, proper color. Our signal lights are not cracked, broken, proper color. Our tail lights are not cracked or broken, proper color. Same with our brake lights. Reverse lights, not cracked or broken, proper color. All our reflectors are in place on the back. The exhaust is tight and secure. We're going to check our door. Make sure that it opens from the outside. Make sure it latches properly. Also check our hinges on the door to make sure that they're not loose. Check the seal on the door, make sure it's in place and nothing is missing on the door. Shut the door. Make sure it shuts secure. All right, next we're going to do the rest of the items on this side of the bus that are different from the other side. We're going to be checking our stop arm, make sure it's secure, the lights are not cracked or broken. This is our fuse compartment. It's where we'd keep our extra fuses, and our circuit breakers are inside here, so our extra fuses would be in here. This is our battery box. We'll check that to make sure everything is secure. The door opens and closes, and the door latches properly, and it is secure. Stop. All right, next we're going to check our entryway to the bus. We're going to check all the passenger items on the bus also, but we're going to start with the entryway. Make sure our handrails are tight and secure, they're not loose. Make sure that our steps are all secure, nothing's loose, no loose matting on the steps. We're going to make sure our entryway light is not cracked or broken. We'll check the function of that when we get to the light section. Stop. Push it in.
Should be a red dot up there. There you go.
Okay. Next, we're going to check the seats on the bus and all of the other passenger items. So we're going to check the tops of the seats to make sure they're all secure. We're going to check all the cushions. We're going to do this on every seat, all the way back, tops and bottoms, the cushions. We're going to check our emergency exits. Make sure they open and the alarm comes on. You don't have to do every one, but you should check them when you're doing your pre-trip for the examination. We're just going to do the side one, and the rear. So you open up the back door, make sure that it opens from the rear, and the alarm goes off. So check all your seats, tops and bottoms, and your emergency exits. Make sure they open and the buzzer comes on. We're going to do our first aid kit to make sure that it's fully stocked, and if we have a body fluid cleanup kit, make sure it's fully stocked, which will probably be in this compartment. Next, we're going to check our fire extinguisher, which is mounted right down here. We're going to check to make sure that it's in the green, it's fully charged, and it's properly rated for the school bus. Alright, next we're going to check our reflective triangles to make sure that we have 3 of those in the box, and we have already checked our extra fuses, which are out in the fuse compartment. Okay, at this point you would ask the examiner to help you with the lights. He'll say we're going to do a complete external light operations check and a complete in-the-vehicle inspection and engine startup. So at this point you ask the examiner to help you with the lights. So you cannot use your automatic lamp check for doing this. You have to do them manually. So you have the examiner come outside, and you will be inside, turn on whichever ones you're going to check, holler out to the examiner, and he'll say yes or give you the thumbs up when they're working. So we're going to do all of our lights now. So driver, tell me what you're doing. Okay, we got our headlights on. We got our high beams are working. Our left signal works. Right signal works. Four-way flashers work. Our clearance lights are working up on top. Red lights. Now our inside red lights are working. Now our outside red lights are working. The stop gate comes out and the stop arm on the side of the bus comes out and is working.
We got that in.
All right. Next we'll go to the rear. May have an extra one. We on?
You're good.
All right. Next we're going to check our clearance lights up on top, make sure that they're all working. We're going to check our tail lights to make sure that they're all functioning properly and working. Next we're going to do our left hand turn is working. Our right hand turn is working. We're going to do our four-way flashers. They are working. We're going to check our brake lights to make sure that they function. They are. We do not have to do the reverse lights. I did that on the other video, but it's not a mandatory thing. Next we're going to check our red warning lights on the top. The inside ones are working and the outside ones are working. The inside ones may not always be red. There's a law coming in where soon they might be yellow, amber colored, but right now on this bus they're red. So, all right, that concludes our light check. Also, we're going to check our entryway lights on the inside and outside, make sure that they're working properly. All right, next we're going to do a inspection of the rest of the bus inside. So we're going to check our seat belt to make sure that it's not cracked, frayed, and it works properly. Latches. It's all in good shape, no frays or cuts or anything like that. So next we're going to check our mirrors to make sure that they're properly adjusted. Alright, next we're going to check our mirrors to make sure that they're properly adjusted for the driver. We're going to check the windshield to make sure that it's not cracked or broken. We're going to check our other right hand mirror to make sure that's properly adjusted, along with our crossover mirrors to make sure that they're properly adjusted for the driver. Next we're going to go over and do our heater and defroster, which will be right down there. So we're going to check the defroster first to make sure it works on high and low. And we can feel the air coming out. It works. We're going to do our heaters, every one of them, on high and low to make sure they all work. Okay, all of our heaters and defrosters are working. Next, we're going to do our windshield wipers and washers to make sure that they function properly. Alright, windshield wipers and washers are working. We're going to check the horn to make sure that that functions properly. Alright. Next we're going to do our indicator lights on the dash. We're going to make sure the left turn works, right turn works, high-low beam works, and the four-way flashers work. And they all do. So next we're going to do a safe start. We're going to have the bus in neutral. The parking brake is on. Driver has his foot on the brake. We're going to do a safe start. So we'll start the vehicle. At this time we're going to check our gauges. You want to check your water gauge to make sure it's coming up to normal operating range. You want to check your oil pressure to make sure it's coming up to normal operating range. You want to check your voltmeter to make sure that it's charging in the proper range. And we're going to check our tachometer is working, which is not on the test, but you want to make sure that's working. Next we're going to check our brake system. We're going to pump the brakes up and hold it for 5 seconds. Pump it up 3 times and hold it for 5 seconds. Make sure you have no leaks. Next, we're going to check the park brake by putting the vehicle in drive with the parking brake on, and it does hold the vehicle. The other part of the test is we're going to drive ahead 5 miles an hour, step on the brakes, make sure the vehicle doesn't pull left or right. Also, when you start the vehicle, you want to make sure that your ABS light goes out on the dash in the first 10 seconds after the bus has been started. Alright, we're going to check our student mirror to make sure it's tight, secure, not cracked, broken, and it's in the proper adjustment for the driver. Also, we're going to check our door operation from the inside here. Make sure the door opens and closes with no problems. Alright, we're also going to check our mirrors to make sure they're tight, secure, they're not cracked or broken. We'll check them on both sides. Stop. Alright, next we're going to simulate a railroad crossing. So the cones up in front of the vehicle are going to be the simulated railroad tracks that we're coming up to with the school bus. So we're approaching the railroad tracks. We're going to check our mirrors. We're going to turn our yellow flashers on at least 100 feet before the tracks. We're going to ask the students to be quiet, checking our mirrors, checking traffic. We're coming up to the railroad crossing. We're going to stop no closer than 15 feet and no farther than 50 feet from the crossing. Put the bus in neutral. We're going to open our window. We're going to open our door. We're going to look up the tracks for a train, look down the tracks for a train. We're going to look up and down. We're going to put the bus in drive. We're going to proceed across, checking for trains both ways as we cross the tracks, checking traffic. Once our front wheels get across the first set of tracks, we'll shut the door, recheck traffic. We get up to speed, we'll shut our four-way flashers off. Stop. Next, we're going to simulate a student discharge. We'll be dropping off 4 new students up at the cones up here. They've never ridden a bus before. They don't know the discharge procedure. So we're going to go up and drop them off at their driveway up by the cones. So at least 100 feet before we get to their drop-off, we're going to check traffic, check our mirrors. We're going to turn our red flashing lights on, the inside lights, to make sure that they're working. People know we're stopping. Rechecking our mirrors. We're going to come to a stop. We're checking our mirrors. Rechecking our mirrors, checking traffic. We come to the stop where the students are going to get out. We're going to stop the bus, put the bus in neutral. We're going to activate our stop arm and our crossing gate. All traffic is stopped. I'd explained to the 4 new students. The 2 that are getting off and going to the right, we go immediately away from the bus. Don't go to the back of the bus, don't go to the mailbox. Get away from the bus, go to your house immediately. The 2 that are crossing the road to the left in front of us, I would indicate to them to stand up in front of the crossing gate, stand up there, look back at me, and when I give you a signal, which I'll point my finger, it'll be safe to cross. If for some reason there's danger, I'll blow the horn, you get back over to the crossing gate where you started out from. So we're going to check all of our traffic, check all our mirrors, check oncoming traffic, especially the right side mirror. All traffic is stopped. Next thing we're going to do, all the students have their instructions. Now we're going to open the door. Now we open the door. We're counting the students. 1, 2, 3, 4 have gotten off the bus. We'll shut the door so no more students get out. The 2 have went up to their house to the right. They're all the way up to their house. The other 2 are waiting in front of the bus for my instructions to cross. I'm going to check all traffic, all my mirrors, check for oncoming traffic. Everything seems to be safe. I will point for them to cross the road. They're safely across the road. They're up by their house. I'll count them. I've got 1, 2 students up at the house. I've got 1, 2 students over here. All 4 students are accounted for. I'm going to shut my lights off. I'm going to check my crossover mirrors to make sure that no students dropped any items in front of the bus. Nothing is in front of the bus. All the students are accounted for. Check traffic, crossover mirrors again. Proceed to the next stop. All right, hit her. All right, now we're going to simulate a school bus coming up to a railroad tracks. The cones represent the railroad tracks, so just if anybody wants to look at this to see how it's properly done. So we're going to simulate school bus coming to the railroad tracks. The cones are going to represent the railroad track, just one set of tracks there. So the bus will be coming up, approaching the tracks. He'll be checking his traffic, turning his 4-way flashers on at least 100 feet before the crossing. He'll stop the bus between 15 and 50 feet from the tracks, which he has done. He has the children be quiet. He'll open his window, he'll open his door, he'll check the traffic and train left and right, recheck train crossing the tracks, checking the train again going across. Once his front wheels get across the track, he'll shut the door, he'll get up to speed, and he'll shut his 4-way flashers off. Next, we're going to simulate a student discharge. These orange cones are going to represent where we're going to be dropping off the 4 new students that never ridden a bus before. So the school bus is going to come up to the stop. We'll explain things as he's coming up to the stop.
Yeah, we're seeing.
All right. So this is going to be for the school bus drivers, so you can see what you look like coming down the road when you're going to be dropping off your students. So the bus will be coming up. He has 4 new students to drop off, so he'll be approaching his stop. Within 100 feet of his stop, he'll be turning on his warning lights, inside warning lights. He's checking traffic. He's continually checking traffic as he's coming to his stop. He gets to the stop, puts the bus in neutral. He extends his stop arm and crossing gate, which he has done. He's explaining to the students the procedure to get off the bus and go safely to your house. He has done that. He has checked traffic before he opened the door. He counted the students as they got off the bus. He has 4 students that got off. Now he has the 2 up in front of the bus. He's looking at them. He gives them the signal to cross. He's checked his mirrors before he opened the door. He checked the mirrors before he sent the students across. He's got all the students accounted for, to the left, to the right. He's going to shut off his lights, retract the stop arm and the gate, check his crossover mirrors, traffic again, and proceed to the next stop. Good enough.